Hi, welcome to this painting tutorial. In this video I will be showing you how I painted my Necron warriors from the Sautekh dynasty. This is a relatively quick method that will get your models on the table in no time. I used a few techniques from Duncan's original Necron warrior video, so I'll be linking that in the description in case you want to watch that one instead. I first started by priming the model with Leadbelcher and gave it a single coat of Ironbreaker over all the parts I wanted to be silver. I used a rattle can primer for this, but you can use any other primer and paint Leadbelcher over it, or you could use any other silver primer if you prefer. Once the Ironbreaker dried, I applied a coat of Nuln Oil straight out of the pot to the silver parts of the model, which in this case is most of the model. After the Nuln Oil dried, I then used Agrax Earthshade but more selectively. I painted this shade onto some of the joints, bullet holes, battle damage, and some random recesses where I felt like dirt would build up. This is to give the model a sort of aged look. And to finish up the metal, I proceeded to dry brush the entire model with Necron compound. Be light when you're dry brushing, as it is always easier to add more than it is to take away. With the metal complete, I used Black Templar on the gun and on the chest where the glyph is. I only applied a single coat of this color for the sake of speed and it looks great. The metal underneath gives it a sort of natural edge highlight, which makes the stepped up edge highlighting with a brush completely unnecessary, but if you prefer you can add a second coat of Black Templar and then edge highlight it with downstone. With the black complete, I added two thin coats of Caliban Green onto the cables at the side of the gun, some cables that stick out from the body, and finally the shoulder pads. After that dried, I used Nuln Oil to shade some of the recesses on the Caliban Green. It was mostly on the shoulder pads with the bullet holes and the space where the shoulder pad starts to rise. I also applied a bit of this shade onto the cables where I felt it needed more shade. I then used Warpstone Glow on all of those areas painted with Caliban Green. For the cables I did a sort of chunky highlight running through the middle of the cable, but leaving a little bit of Caliban Green showing at the very ends. And for the shoulder pads I did a normal edge highlight. Finally, I used Moot Green on those same areas. For the cables, I did a sort of fine highlight running through the middle again, but leaving this time a bit of Warpstone Glow on each end to create a sort of transition from the darker green to the lighter green. For the shoulder pads, I did a fine edge highlight, but only on the sharpest points of the shoulder pads, so it was mostly like corners and such. And like the bottom of the bullet holes. By the way, you can see that I painted the glyph in the chest with Moot Green. That was a mistake. Leave the glyph unpainted for now. With the Caliban Green parts complete, it's time to start the glowing green parts. I started by painting the rods on the gun, the coils, the glyph on the chest, and the eyes with pure white. Try to be neat around the black, but if you make a mistake, don't worry, I will show you how to correct them. Before moving on, I decided to fix any mistakes I did with the white over the black. For this, I simply mixed black Templar with contrast medium in a 1-to-1 mix and painted it over the parts that I stained with white. After this, I painted Tesseract Glow all over the white. Remember to shake this paint very well before using it and watch for pooling. Here you can see that I was very dumb and realized that I painted the glyph the wrong color after I used Tesseract Glow. But it doesn't matter, I just went back to white and painted the glyph white, waited for that to dry, and then painted Tesseract Glow over it. Remember to have very little Tesseract Glow on your brush when doing this, as it can easily overspill over the black and the silver. I then used Caliban Green and selectively used it to paint some of the recesses where we painted Tesseract Glow. I thinned down the color a bit more than I usually would because I wanted it to flow better from my brush. I started by painting this color right on the little recess that's beneath the eyes, the one that's on the lower part of the eye sockets. Then for the coils, I painted this color right on the recess where the coils connect with the gun and also beneath the coil. Then to finish it off, I painted this color on the recesses that are on the rods of the gun. Now to finish off the model, I selectively used pure white again for different purposes. I first used it to paint a dot of light on each of the orbs that are on the rods. Then I did some mild edge highlighting on the rods with this color, keeping the edge highlight to the edges of the rods and some of the edges at the middle and the top. Then for the coils, I edge highlighted the little ridge that forms when the coils bend down. For the cables, I painted a small line on each end where the Moot Green begins. For the glyph in the chest, I painted some dots of white at the end of each branch of the glyph. And finally, I painted a dot of white directly into the raised part of the eye. After this, the model is pretty much finished, and you can go on to base it however you like. Here's the finished model. I really like how it all turned out and hope you liked it as well. I decided to go for a red Martian base to contrast all that green in the model, but you can use whichever base you like. Anyways, thank you a lot for watching, and do give a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe if you want to see more painting tutorials from me. Goodbye.